Hi everyone, my name is Haze. I'm an artist and speed painter from Malaysia, and today we'll be doing a tutorial on Procreate where I will teach you how to color your sketch, whether if it's from a traditional pencil drawing or if you have sketched it in another app or in Procreate itself. So let's get started. So in order to follow this tutorial, you need to download the Easy Skin Tone palette and also the portrait brushes from my website. So they are all free and you can also make a donation if you want to. So first I'll start by doing my sketch in Procreate. I'm just using the sketch brush from my portrait brush pack. If you notice, I'm sketching really weirdly because my canvas is really small. The reason for this is I want to match my canvas size to the reference size so that when I sketch, I can easily see the difference and if I'm doing it correctly or not. But if you have your own pencil sketch and you have scanned them into your iPad, you can just proceed to 8 minutes and 26 seconds for how to color your sketch immediately. Here I'm applying Andrew Loomis's head proportions, which I find is kind of useful and easy to follow, but sometimes it can be a little bit different, so we'll see this time how it turns out. So if you see here, there's a vertical line in the center of the head, which is a circle, and this vertical line signifies where the head is looking at the moment, and at the bottom of the circle it will be where your nose is supposed to be. And now if you split your circle into half again horizontally, that's where your brow bone will sit and where your ears will also meet at the end. So when you're drawing your eyes, make sure that your eyes are facing each other in the direction that is the same as your brows, just like this. Once you have the jaw drawn below the circle to represent the jaw, halfway down would be the point where the mouth would start. Once you have the lips drawn, you can then adjust the shape and the size of your jaw and your face. When you're done laying down the first pass of the sketch, then you are ready to go into detail drawing once you ensure that all the proportions are correct. So now I'm sketching for real this time on another layer using the portrait sketch brush. So this process is actually very simple. We are just going to use this sketch brush for the entire face. So the goal of this pass is to clean up the previous layer sketch. So I'm just trying to do a very clean line art. So when I'm done, I create a new layer underneath this new sketch layer and I drop the same color in it. Then I turn down the opacity. Then after that, I create a new layer and I start to shade the whole sketch in. I'm still using the sketch brush from the portrait brush pack for this part, and I quickly painted down a streak with varying paint pressure so that I can get all sorts of tones from it, and I can use all these tones by picking the colors to sketch onto the face. Because I wanted this painting to look like a pencil sketch, so I'm just going to use the same sketch brush. And using the same sketch brush, I am very concerned about the directions of my brush strokes. I want them to flow nicely together, so I'm thinking about how to flow them along the curvature of the face or along the bones of the face or the flow of the lines. So I'm thinking of all these directions as I am sketching. So if I don't like the directions that I just sketch, I can always smudge them away or erase them. Even though the lines are flowing into each other, but that doesn't mean that they cannot form shapes of their own. So some of them are in shapes like a C shape or a triangle shape. So I make sure that the shape is very distinct. So the more distinct the shape is, the neater the illustration will look, and with the flow of the lines, everything will just look very loose but structured at the same time. So if you want to take a look at the shapes that I have, you have to look at the nose. The nose have a clear boundary of certain shapes that makes it different. So as I develop the sketch, you will see more and more shapes appear in the nose, and that's how you should structure your face and create more shadow shapes within them. And also, if you observe closely, I do not have any cross hatching, meaning my lines and my shading lines do not cross each other in an X or any form of a T. So they are all just going in the same direction. So any time that the lines start to cross, I start to erase them and I start to think about how to flow the lines properly without cross hatching them. But of course, this is a very personal style. You can also use cross-hatching if you want to, but I'm just explaining the philosophy behind how I sketch, and if that would help you, that would be great. If you're doing this tutorial along with me, then you'll be wondering when you should stop sketching, because we are going to apply color later on. So the idea for this technique is to stop sketching when this sketch looks like a finished painting itself. So it should look good enough to satisfy you already without any color in it. So that is when you should stop sketching. The color part is really simple and doesn't take much work, so the bulk of the work is still in the sketch. So the sketch has to look really good in order for the end result to look good. For big areas, I like to just scribble and then smudge it out. Then it will just be quicker this way instead of hatching every line. You can just use the smudge brush in the portrait brush pad, and that will already work very well on its own. So now I have one of the light sketch on the face already, and now I'm moving on to a darker color to resketch the entire face with this dark color. The darker you go, the more important it is to keep to the shapes of the shadows. So if you have defined the shape already, keep to it, and if you are keeping some highlights, remember to keep the highlights clean and neat. So if you're going for a realistic look, then you have to follow the reference exactly, but if you're going for a more stylized look, then you can sketch it however you like, emphasizing certain parts and omitting certain parts of the tonal values. So here in my version of my sketch, I am focusing my details and contrast on the eyes, the nose and the lips, while I'm keeping the rest of the face quite bare and with minimal sketch, so that I can draw more attention to these three features. Now I'm nearing the end of my sketch session, and I just changed the base layer to be a lighter color so that there's a lot more contrast going on in the face. So now I'm doing the darker tone already and trying to get maximum contrast at this point. And now you can see really apparent shapes in the cupid's bow and in the nose already. At this stage, I'm not worrying about the flow of my lines anymore, because I already have lines underneath that can guide me into how my lines should flow. But I'm thinking a lot more about the shapes of the shadows, and I'm really thinking how to make them work well together. One of the advantages of sketching in Procreate is that in big areas you can just use a bigger brush instead of sketching all the way. So I'm just blocking in my hair so that I can see the design of all my tonal values together. And because my sketching are so delicate, I am going to smudge the hair so that it has a more painterly feel to it instead of being one big block of flat color. And now I'm trying to design the tonal value shapes so that it is a pleasing composition. And if you want to read more about this topic, it is called Notan, and this is actually a design of black and white, and this will help you a lot when it comes to compositing your sketches and designs. Now I'm using the darkest color for my sketch layer, and this is my last pass. So I'm very careful about where I use them in order to achieve maximum contrast in those areas. I don't want to use them all over the face because that would just make everything too high contrast, and I just want to draw focus to certain features of the face only. Now I'm done with the sketch, and I want to leave the sketch marks to serve as a style, and I'm going to move forward to coloring this sketch now. So for those of you who have sketched on paper and imported into Procreate using camera or scanner, here's what you need to do. You need to import your sketch into Procreate, and then you need to turn the multiply mode on. Hit on this end button and click on multiply, but if you're doing this straight on Procreate, you can skip this part. So the next thing you need to do is to click on the background color layer, and then you can pick a color for your background. So here I pick a flashy color which is slightly pink. If you follow these steps correctly, you will be able to see something like this with a different background color and your sketch right above it. Then you need to create another layer just below your sketch layer. And now you're going to color this layer and color just the parts of your sketch. So now I'm just coloring the face, I'm ignoring the hair. You can color the hair as well. It doesn't matter what color you use, but the value is important. So if your portrait is light, and you have to color a light color, but if your portrait is dark, so you need to color a darker color. Just make sure that the lightness and the darkness of the color is as dark as the skin that you want it to be. Then once you are done, you're going to click on the sketch layer and click merge down. So this will merge the layer that you just painted together with the sketch layer. So on this new layer, you will be doing all the painting, and if you're worried of making a mistake, you can duplicate this layer now. So now you're going to open up your color palette and look at the easy skin tone palette, and now we're going to try and guess the skin tone color for the face. So I'm guessing that it will be this color, and I'm going to try and use this color for the face now. Then pick the saturation brush from the portrait brush pack. It's really very important that you use this brush or else it will not work. I enlarged the brush size and I color the entire face to check if this is the correct color that I want. Then I realized that it is not the color that I want. So I go back to my easy skin tone palette and pick another color and try again until I can find a color that is the most similar to the color that I want to represent the face. It takes a couple of tries because the colors are so subtle, but in the end I finally found the color that I want. Then I paint the entire thing. Once you have found the correct skin tone color, you can then proceed to put on the reds for the face. So pick a red that represents the blusher and the lips. I picked this red, but you might have to try a couple of times to get the tone of red that you want. Once you have found the correct color, you can then reduce the size of the brush and paint this over your lips, your nose a little bit, and also over the eyes, especially the corner of the eyes where the tear ducts are. Once you're done with the reds, you can then pick an orange to balance out the redness of the skin. So looking at the reference, take a look at it and see which parts are orange, and then you can then paint them accordingly on your own portrait. Make sure that your brush size is kind of big so that you don't get patchy colors. Here I'm having difficulty looking at my own skin, so I'm changing the background color to another color so that I can see them more clearly. So you can do this by just clicking on the background layer. Then you can go ahead and pick another color. Once I've changed the background color, I felt like my face is too pale and I want to redo everything again. So if you want to redo everything again, it's really easy. Just pick another skin tone color and color the entire face again and search for skin tones that you think are correct once again. Since I'm redoing again, then I'll take the opportunity to repeat again about coloring. So the first step is to always search for the correct skin tone. Once you have the correct skin tone color, you can then search for the correct red color for the blusher, lips and the eyes. And then after the reds, you have to pick an orange to balance out the redness in the skin. After you're done with the orange, I like to paint grey to neutralize back all the colors of black in this picture. So like brows, the hair, the eyes, and certain lines, colors, I like to make them black again. So up till now, if you count the amount of correct color that I use, I've only used a total of 4 colors. But because I can use different pen pressure with my Apple Pencil, I can get a variety of tones, and this is how I can get to where I am today. Once the gray area has been neutralized like this, you can then judge colors even better. So looking at this now, I felt like the contrast is not there yet because the blacks are very gray. So I'm using the curves tool to pull it back and to get some shadows to be darker. And I'm also using the HSL tool to change the saturation a little bit. Adjustments aside, the next step would be to pick a yellow color to balance out the reds and the orange. Yellows are really subtle in portrait, so when you paint the yellows, remember to use a very light touch in order not to overwhelm the portrait. So if you're unsure, just paint a little first because you can always go back and add them later on. And then the next step would be to paint the details, so I can just pick any colors from the palette or I can pick colors from the existing portrait to paint in the details. Now I'm doing the lashes. So when I'm painting the details, I switch back to my sketch brush. I'm also using the same sketch brush to put in highlights for the eyes. So this time around, not using any brushes from my glitter brush pack or any highlights brush, I'm just using a regular sketch brush. Sometimes it takes a few tries to get the highlights to be in the position that you want them to be, that looks natural. This process has been really easy. It's just 6 steps. Paint the skin tone and then the reds, the orange and yellows, and then also neutralize the grays, and then finally the details. So it's really easy. It's just a few colors that you need to figure out. Then to finish off the painting, I have some leftover drawings of flowers that I can use to put them inside here and then see how I can place them around the painting. So it's good to do some illustration of flowers and birds, animals, or anything in particular so that you can just use them when you are doing your portrait painting. And when my painting is nearing its completion, I take a look again and see if there's any changes required. So the neck looks a bit weird because I'm following the reference and it doesn't have a body. So now I'm trying to make adjustment to it to make it look more natural. So don't be afraid to deconstruct and destroy parts of your painting in order to make it look better. And also you can revisit your colors and see if there's any changes necessary. So just 6 simple steps to color your sketch, really easy. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Remember to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram. Bye!